Hey guys, my name is Ben from McMillen Photography, and we're making another video for BehindTheCamera.com. And actually today we're doing more of a commercial shoot, and we're doing it for an insurance company. I can't really say the name because I had to sign a bunch of papers, but I am going to explain my setup and how we're shooting this. A couple of things we're doing today. We have to do about 180 headshots really quickly, all within probably like an hour and a half's time. So we're going to shoot really fast once we get them in there. And a couple things about those headshots. When we do the headshots, we're going to do an ID card. Each person's going to fill that out because I don't know who these people are. They're going to put their name on it. I'm going to take a first picture. We call it like an ID picture. And then obviously we go ahead and do the headshots from there. So the setup, we're going to kind of show you how we set everything up here. We got tons of gear. We have a D810 right up here. We got this camera here. And I have two different transmitters on here. And I have one transmitter that controls my hair light right here. And then we have more of a studio strobe, but I'll show you that in a second. So right here we have a receiver, another transmitter for that. So I can actually control the power on both those lights independently. They are two different lights. One is controlling a speed light and one is controlling more of a studio strobe. And I'll show you those in a second. So for the lens, we're using a 70 to 200, and we're shooting between like 110 to 135 millimeter range for our headshots. I wish I could go back just a little bit further, but we can't. This is what we're dealing with here. Anytime we're using studio strobes or any kind of flash in the pictures, definitely put your hood on. You will get some crazy angles and flash bounce around to come in the lens, and you don't want to kill a good picture, especially when you're trying to shoot fast. You may miss something. So we did a couple test shots. We are shooting at f8, 1/25th of a second at 200 ISO. And if it was me shooting, I may change that a little bit, but this is actually the instructions they gave us. They do, I think they said 16, Ed, you can answer this question while you're filming. Was it 16 different events around the country they do the same thing?
17.
17 different events, and they want them all to look the same. So they're using many different photographers, but they want the results to be the same thing. So they get like a basic lighting diagram of how they want it, and we're going to duplicate that and show that. So this is the camera setup. Again, we're shooting straight to an SD card, and at the end of the day, we're actually going to dump all these onto a large flash drive, and we're actually going to deliver the files tonight in RAW format. We're not going to edit anything. They have an editor who's going to edit all the pictures from all the different events across the country. So all we have to do is shoot this today. And once we're done shooting here, the headshots, we're actually going to shoot the event as well. There's going to be speakers, awards, question and answer sessions from the audience. We got to go cover all that. So it's not just headshots, but we can't show you the rest of that. I just want to show you guys how we have the headshots set up at a location shoot like this. So definitely use a tripod. We definitely use that every single time. And if you're using a big lens like a 70-200, instead of keep cranking on your handle here, I just use the collar thing here and just keep turning this way. But for the most part, all these are going to be straight on portrait style like this and not landscape. And when you're doing more of a commercial shoot, like for a company, and you're doing a lot of headshots, you don't just want to shoot a headshot like you would do in the studio. Usually in the studio, you're shooting like, chest up, a little above the head for a nice tight headshot. When you do shots like this for a company, and you're delivering the files to somebody else, they may actually group some of these pictures together. So you want to capture the shoulders, part of the arms, because they may combine some of these shots. So you got to shoot wider than you normally would. And when I say wider, I don't mean a wider lens. I just mean you got to back up a little bit more and capture the shoulders, the side of the arms, and everything. So a little bit wider of a shot. They will crop in later on. But always check with the person who's giving you all the different directions on how to shoot this and get them exactly what they want. So RAW format on the files, a little bit wider than normal. They are headshots, but it's going to be covering from like the waist to a few feet, about a foot above the head, and definitely covering the shoulders in case you have to piece some shots together. So that's enough about the camera. Let's show you the light setup over here. For our main light source, we do have a 600 watt head. It is battery powered, and we have a second one ready to go in case we need it, but I can actually get about 400 shots at full power on this light pack right here. It has an internal receiver, which is what's running off the camera over there for a transmitter. It's firing this thing off. I'm running this at 1/32 power because it's a pretty powerful head. Nice big softbox. If Ed, you want to walk around over here, I'll show you the softbox. This is a huge softbox right here. Larger light source, the softer it's going to be. I'm not sure the exact size, but it's 5 feet, something like that. It's about a 5-foot softbox, octabox here. And we're only just using mainly one light source from the front. We do have a hair light in the back. I'll show you that in a second. But for the main light source, just this right here, we do have a big reflector right here. And this is white. I'm not using silver. I'm just using white, keeping it really close. This is actually a background stand. And instead of using it as a background, we're actually using it with a big white reflector and just bouncing some light back in there. And then to get a little extra light up in the face, we're using a little reflector right here, just like we do in our studio. Sometimes we use the silver side, but today we're going to use the white. The silver is just too much for what we're trying to do. So main light, another reflector down here to get the light up in the face, another main reflector over here, so that way we don't have to run two lights up front. So nice, tight, small setup. Everything is really close, kind of sandwiched together. Another thing about this big softbox up here, you don't want to just point it straight at their head. You want to kind of feather it in a little bit, let that light bounce around in here and kind of come right back at it nice and soft. Okay, so a couple other things I want to show you. Anytime you work around a lot of people, you want to consider using sandbags. I mean, these light stands are pretty sturdy, but the problem is if someone bumps it, I could really whack this thing pretty hard and it's not going to go anywhere because we have sandbags in here. Definitely take sandbags on location. You don't want this thing to tip over top of somebody. We're going to have a lot of people coming in here, and we're shooting really fast. So I don't want this thing to just fall over on somebody when they lean on it, they grab it. People all the time just grab your stuff. They don't know any better. So you want to kind of protect yourself. Definitely use some sandbags. Most people use them outside. I use them inside as well. And this is our hair light. And this is just a little speed light. And we have a receiver on the speed light. We have a grid on here too. So a little more of a, instead of using a snoot, which would be a really small pattern, we're using a grid, which is still nice and tight, but it's getting the shoulders and everything. So that was actually Ed's idea. So good job, Ed. Instead of using the snoot. Snoot was just too tight, and we need a bit of a wider range because we're moving this thing around a little bit. So this is going to go up a little bit higher and turn it on. I can control the power of this from back there. I can control the power of the main strobe from back there as well. That's why we're using two different transmitters. Okay, so one more thing about the hair light when you're shooting, especially shots like this. Now in our studio, we can kind of control things a little bit better, but we're trying to do a quick headshot, fast for everybody. We're not going to be adjusting the hair light up and down. What we're actually going to do is when we get somebody that's bald, kind of like me, or like really white hair, we may actually turn the hair light off. And I have a control back there. Like I said, I have two different transmitters. One's controlling the hair light, one is actually controlling the studio strobe over there. So I'll be able to turn this light on and off from over there. I could change the power, but for the most part, I'm just going to be turning it on and off. You got to think about what the end result's going to be here. This is for a website. This is for business cards, things like that, but we got to crank these out really fast. We don't have time to really nitpick every single shot. So as long as their expression's good and they look invitable, or that's not the right word, but like approachable, I guess is the right word to say. I just made up my own word. But that's what we're going for. So quick and fast expression is everything in what we're doing now. So that's the most important thing once we're set up. Another little tip here, when you're doing these headshots, especially in a setup like this, we're using one light source. There may be an instance where we want this light source to be on this side, depending on maybe the subject, maybe their hair's parted differently. Some girls have a big old swoop on this side or this side over here. You got to be well aware of that, because if you shoot that and you have their on the wrong side, you can have a big old shadow on their face, and you definitely don't want that. So we may have to move this from side to side. Everything that we have laid out here, we have pieces of tape marked on the floor of where it is, so we can quickly go back to it. And I'm going to put a piece of tape down right here. So even our camera over here. And another reason we mark everything is if we happen to have to break down for any reason, we come right back in here. We know exactly where we are, and we sit right back up and we get our shot. The background we're using is just a big old 10-foot white backdrop. Looks like it's kind of an off-white. We did not bring this in. This is something they brought in. It's something they use at every single event. Just a big piece of white paper, big seamless piece of white paper. We could have brought it in, but they like to keep it the same for every single event. And even though, if they just would have told us white paper, it may not be the exact same shade of white that they use at all the different events. And they want to look all very similar to the same. And we also need to be between 4 to 5 feet off the background from where the subject sits down. And that's got to be the same too, because if we were too far away, the background's going to go to gray even more. If it's for too close, the lights are going to light it up and it's going to look more white. So they want it to be pretty consistent. And I think that's pretty much it as far as the setup goes. Like I said, we're going to shoot 180 headshots really quickly. We already did some test shots. Maybe I'll pop up on the screen a few shots that I did with Ed. I apologize. Ed is behind the camera. Good. Ed, you can show yourself there for a second. So that is what I had to work with right there. So I do apologize in advance.
A little selfie action.
Yeah, a little selfie action there going on. So we'll put it back on me for a second. We can't actually show you the actual job going on today because it is a company event, and we had to sign a bunch of papers saying that we can't use the company name, but that's okay. I still wanted to show the setup. It's fairly simple once you break it down, but there's a lot of moving parts, and we did have to kind of conform to exactly what they wanted. Again, we're shooting f8, 1/25th of a second at 200 ISO. And I think we got our shots off. I think we're going to get some really good shots here quickly. We're set up, running 2 cameras, one for the headshots and one for the rest of the event out there. And hopefully this goes well, and we're going to shoot here in a couple hours, and here we go. Well, actually, you're not going to see any of that. So anyway, hopefully you learned a little bit about how we do commercial jobs and headshots. All right, cool. Okay, so we're all set up. Right now we're going to do a test shot with my supermodel Ed. Where's he at? Right there. I'm going to put him in the hot seat and take a few pictures, and all right, here we go.